All right. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you could join us this evening. My name is Anitra Guzman Santana. I'm the Senior Director of JCY Westchester Community Partners, or WCP programs here at Family Service Society of Yonkers. We call it FISSY for short. FISSY is a human services provider that offers a range of programs focusing on home health care, support for diverse families, guardianship, education, and advocacy for individuals and families. We are pleased to bring you this program, Why Vaccinate, a COVID-19 discussion tonight. We've all been touched by this disease in some form or another: sickness, death, school closure, isolation. Life as we know it during the pandemic has been altered, and we are forever changed. Now vaccines are offering a way through the darkness caused by the pandemic, and some folks want more information before they choose to be immunized. Tonight, I welcome Carole Deyoe, a New York State registered pharmacist and associate for public policy at New York State Association for Healthcare Providers. HCP represents home and community-based care providers across New York State through advocacy, information, and education. We're grateful to HCP for their partnership and providing us with an expert who will deliver important insights on this topic tonight. We ask that you keep yourself muted and type your questions into the chat. And if your question is of a personal nature, use the direct message option in the chat and direct message directly to Carole. A Q&A will follow the presentation. Once again, I introduce Carole Deyoe. Carole?
No, I was the one that was muted. Now we had technical difficulties earlier. I wanted to be quiet while you were talking. See how I am? So as Anitra said, I am a New York State registered pharmacist, practicing pharmacist. Besides my work at HCP, I also do consulting. So I'm very, very involved with the intellectually and developmentally disabled folks in the community, in residences, assisted living. So I have a great respect for caregivers. I could not do what you do. And hopefully tonight we'll get you a little more informed about vaccines. I'm a casual kind of gal, so just pop any question you want into the chat. Marissa and Anitra are going to help me maybe keep track of those. And like Anitra said, if it's personal, if you're not a techno geek, like I am not a techno geek, when you go into the chat, just click the box that says everyone and pick my name or pick one of the other hosts. And then everyone won't see your question if you care to keep it a little bit private. So why vaccinate? And I'll get the screen to go here. There we go. So every day, more than once a day for over a year now, we have heard wash your hands, wear your mask, watch your distance. And all these behaviors help protect us from COVID-19, from the virus that causes COVID-19. And now, hooray, we can add vaccines as another layer of protection, okay? You need to remember it's another layer of protection. It doesn't mean we can rip off those masks tomorrow, okay? We don't have a majority of the population vaccinated yet. And the vaccines are not 100% effective, just like every vaccine that we have that we've known for years and years. Nothing is 100%. So for a little while, and we'll explain that later on, how long we might have to wait. We're still going to have to wash our hands, wear our masks, watch our distance. And of course, we'll keep washing our hands forever and ever because that's just a good thing to do. Knowledge is power, right? Folks are concerned because these vaccines came up so fast. They're concerned about safety. Why do I need it? They look at everything on the internet, Dr. Facebook, right? Getting the facts and increasing our understanding is our way to be less afraid, okay? When you know the enemy and when you have the knowledge and the information that you need, you can be less afraid. The thing is to get the good information, right? You don't want to listen to your cousin's dog's grandmother's story about COVID, okay? You want to trust the experts. You want to trust the CDC. At HCP, we have a beautiful resources website that's open to the public as part of our emergency preparedness. You can see all the resources you need there. My email address will be available to you at the end of the program. If you have questions that you don't think of tonight, you can feel free to ask me. I am a bit of a COVID-19 vaccine expert since I came on HCP in October. because I'm a pharmacist and a vaccinator, they said, Carole, what about these vaccines? So that's pretty much what I've been immersed in since October. And so I am thrilled to see an end in sight. So we're getting there. So first things first, let's talk about COVID-19, coronaviruses. They're named coronaviruses because of that halo. Okay, you've probably heard this. Those are all those little spike proteins, and it looks like a halo around the virus. Coronaviruses are absolutely nothing new, okay? The common cold is a coronavirus. You probably remember SARS or MERS if you're as old as I am, maybe. Those were coronaviruses. They were scary at the time. They did not cause the devastation that COVID-19 is causing. SARS-CoV-2 is the name of the virus, and COVID-19 is the illness. So sometimes we kind of say COVID-19 virus, but just so you know, I like for people to know the terminology and the stuff that they're hearing in the news and the words that are thrown around. So SARS-CoV-2 is the virus, COVID-19 is the illness. Novel, people call it a novel coronavirus, and that sounds scary. The word novel just means new. That's all it means, okay? Coronaviruses are not new. This particular coronavirus is new, and it has caused a worldwide pandemic. More about COVID-19. Oh, I can't get this. There we go. Transmission is via respiratory droplets. And yes, I'm very conscious. I just touched my nose, which we're not supposed to do, right? So sneezing on somebody, coughing on somebody, same as the flu spreads, same as cold germ spreads. You cough into your hand, you touch the doorknob, the guy behind you touches the doorknob, okay? That's how it is spread. It is very unlikely you're going to get it from touching the cereal box in the grocery store, okay? The odds that somebody sneezed on that cereal box are pretty slim, all right? I'm just being honest with you. Transmission rate. We hear different numbers thrown around. There's a number called R0 that I'm not even going to go into because it's crazy scientific. But just to give you some perspective, the flu pandemic of 2009 had a transmission rate at about 1.5, okay? The flu pandemic of 1918 that killed a ton of people had a transmission rate of almost 3, okay? If you can picture these numbers. Measles, that we have almost eradicated except for folks that don't want to get vaccinated, has a transmission rate of 12, okay? So you're 12 times more likely to get measles as you are regular flu during regular flu season. COVID transmission has run the gamut from a little over 1 to over 5. You have to remember that these numbers are not a characteristic of the virus. They are a result of our behavior. So when COVID-19 first came to this country, nobody knew it was here, right? We weren't doing anything. We weren't washing, we weren't cleaning, we weren't wearing masks, we weren't keeping away from each other. We were hugging, kissing, going about our business. So the transmission rate was very high. So that's where we get that 5 number from, right? Now, with all of the things that we've been doing, staying away from each other and trying to keep our distance from people and wearing those masks in public, in January of this year, because people got scared when the numbers went up in December, January, we actually had some states that had a transmission below 1, which is where we want to be for everybody, okay? That didn't last very long, but we were there, so we know we can get there, okay? We want it to be below 1. You all know the symptoms. I'm not going to go through those. You've heard them probably every day. Super spreaders. When you hear that word, that's a little bit of a scary word. All super spreader means is a large event where a lot of people are gathered so that the virus can spread easily, right? Or think about Jimmy in the mailroom, right? Jimmy goes to every department on every floor. Jimmy sees 125 people in his office building a day. Then he gets on the subway and he goes to the east side where he helps out in a soup kitchen. And then he gets on the subway the next day and goes to the west side to do something else and sing in his church choir. So he's traveling, he's spreading it all around, okay? That's a super spreader. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with that person. It doesn't mean they have more virus than other people. It just means that they see more folks that they can spread the virus to. That's all that means. So why is COVID-19 such a large threat? Why is it a big deal? Everybody says, oh, it's just like the flu, right? What's the big deal? The problem with COVID-19 is you have such a long period where people don't have any symptoms and they can spread the disease without knowing that they're sick, okay? The fact that it is a new coronavirus, we have a lot to learn, right? Scientists, they weren't starting from scratch, as I'll talk about in a minute, but anytime something is new, we have to learn about it. Scientists, it's going to take time to study. As you know, in the beginning, the recommendations were all over the place, right? We're going to do this, we're going to do that. And people got frustrated because we were trying to make recommendations before we knew enough stuff. Now we know a whole lot of stuff and we're still learning stuff, but it's still a big threat. Has a very high rate of severe disease and death, especially in vulnerable populations. The seniors that you guys take care of, right? Folks with comorbidities. There's a very, very strong association with obesity. 40% of the people in this country are obese, okay? So countries that have lower obesity rates are having a worse problem with COVID because they don't have as many people affected, okay? We don't know what the correlation is yet. It could have to do with the way the virus distributes in the body. We're not sure yet, but it's a very strong association with obesity, which is hitting this country very hard. COVID-19 affects many body symptoms. You know, you get the flu and you have body aches and upper respiratory and you're sneezing and coughing and a headache, right? As you've probably heard, COVID-19 doesn't just attack the lungs. People have neurological symptoms, right? What's with the taste and the smell? That's not in your lungs. That's in your neurological system. Folks are having symptoms, especially later on, where they can't remember things, okay? They're having memory loss. Their brain is affected. People's blood is clotting when they have COVID, and it's affecting different people in different ways. Their kidneys are shutting down. So it really affects everywhere in our bodies, which makes it a bigger threat than a lot of other diseases. We don't have very many treatments for it, right? It took a while because we don't know what's good. We have to just kind of throw things at it and hope for the best. So that's why it's such a big, big threat, and it's overwhelming our health system. It's overwhelming our lives, as you know. So why do you want to be vaccinated? Do you want to protect yourself? Do you want to be immunized to protect your family, your patients, your children? Do you want to protect the whole world? Getting vaccinated is going to get us back to a normal life. Maybe that's your reason. Marissa, if we could launch that poll, we're going to just engage you for a minute. If you just click whatever applies to you, nobody's going to know what you're clicking. It's completely anonymous. Just curious as to people's motivation for being vaccinated. We'll give you a few seconds to do that. Give you about 5 more seconds here. Okay, we can close that poll. And it looks like everybody wants to get back to normal life, right? We all just want to go back to living the way we were and hugging everybody and going to that concert and watching the kids play games and the kids going to school and everybody just being the way we were, right? Everybody wants to protect themselves and their families, a lot of numbers there. And I'm really, really happy to see, I'm getting all misty here, that 64% of the people want to protect the world. And I think that's kind of cool. And that's a great reason for being vaccinated, because a lot of folks think that way. A lot of folks think, well, I don't need to be vaccinated. I'm not going to get sick from COVID. I'm healthy. You know, it doesn't kill people my age. But you know what? By me getting vaccinated, I'm protecting you and you and you and you. So we don't often get a chance in this life to do something for humankind, right? We might pick up some trash on the side of the road, or we might volunteer for a specific group of people, but getting vaccinated, I really feel, is something we can really do for the entire planet. So that's really cool that you guys feel the same way. I'm all Twitter-pated. So herd immunity. What the heck is herd immunity? You've heard that term, right? And I'm going to explain it to you in a way maybe you can get it. So when some people get vaccinated, the disease slows down, right? That first little diagram was the disease spreading out of control. When a lot of people get vaccinated, the disease doesn't spread. So I don't know who's on the phone here, what kind of folks we have, but I'm going to use a football analogy. So everybody can picture a football game, right? And the quarterback's got the ball and he can throw it to any of his guys down the field. Well, if there's absolutely no defense, he can throw it to anybody, right? So if nobody's vaccinated, that virus can go to anybody. If he's got half the defensive players out there and half of his guys are covered, He has fewer options, but he can still throw it to a heck of a lot of guys, right? If every one of his receivers is covered by the defense, he has nowhere to throw it, and Tom gets knocked on his bum. So the more people get vaccinated, the fewer people can get infected. The virus eventually dies out. We get to that number below 1, which means that every person infects less than one other person. So eventually you can see that number go down, and that's basically what herd immunity is. I don't have the chat open. If we have any questions, Marissa, if you could just let me know, that would be great. So now I'm going to go over vaccine basics really quickly. Vaccines all work pretty much the same way, okay? Even vaccines for cancer, which we have now, work in pretty much the same way as our vaccines against diseases, okay? So what we do is we introduce the enemy into our bodies. We don't introduce the real enemy because we don't want to infect you. We introduce either a dead piece of the enemy or a little part of the enemy or something that looks like the enemy, right? A dead virus, an inactive cell. In the case of COVID-19, we use that little spike protein. So just one little piece of the virus. It doesn't have all that nasty virus stuff that can make you sick, but it has just enough that our bodies recognize it as the enemy, okay? So we introduce it, body recognizes it, our body responds and says, yo, this guy doesn't belong here, right? So armies of cells, all different kinds of cells. You got B cells, you got T cells, you got antibodies. You don't need to remember any of that, right? All you need to know is your immune system is going to call everybody into action, and it's going to remember. It's going to remember what that enemy guy looked like, okay? So then the vaccine goes throughout, you kind of clear it out, right? And then a week later, you're exposed to the virus. Well, your body recognizes that little guy, that little spike protein on the virus, and that army goes to work 10 times harder than it did with the vaccine. Reacts again, okay? Which is why you react a little bit bigger on that second vaccine, which we're also going to talk about in a minute. That's your immune system reacting. And excuse me,
Carole?
I have to get my watch then. Yes?
So
Yes.
I think this would be a good time. We had a question in the chat box because the COVID-19 vaccine does not kill the virus. Then how does it lower transmission?
Okay, it lowers transmission because and this is true for all vaccines, okay? We couldn't say at the beginning when the vaccines came out that yes, it lowers transmission because those tests were not complete yet, okay? But we know this about vaccines we've had in the past, and now that millions of people have been vaccinated, we are seeing it. So the way this happens is if I'm vaccinated and I'm exposed to somebody that's infected and I have close exposure within 6 feet, 15 minutes, right? Little bit of virus goes to me. If I was not vaccinated, that virus would just keep replicating, right? Because I'm vaccinated, that little bit of virus goes in me. It might stay, okay? But my body is going to control it because I'm vaccinated. My immune system is going to control it from replicating and getting out of control. You can only spread virus if you have enough to spread, okay? So I might have a little bit, and it's probably not going to live long in my nose, which is where it needs to be to spread because my immune system is taking care of it. This way, I can't spread it to the next person. Does that make sense? Did I explain that okay? So even though I pick up a little bit of virus from somebody, my immune system is taking care of it so that it can't be out of control where I have, 100 pieces of virus now that I'm going to go spread it to somebody else. So even though it doesn't kill it, it prevents it from getting big in my body and then spreading it to somebody else. I hope I did that okay. I do need my watch though, because I talk too long. So that spike protein, as we talked about, that's the antigen that our body learns is the enemy. I just like the pictures and I like making arrows. So all three of the vaccines we have teach our body to make that spike protein. So they're not actually injecting you with the spike protein like we do in a lot of vaccines. Like pneumonia, we inject a little piece of the virus, just a little dead end piece. With these vaccines, it's very cool because they're injecting the instructions for your own body to make that little spike protein. So we're actually making that little enemy guy ourselves. And it's amazing. It's not new technology. This technology has been around for 15 years, I think, from the first SARS outbreak that we had 15 years ago. So it is not new technology at all. It just hasn't been utilized because we haven't needed to utilize it. Okay. We haven't had a virus of this magnitude that affected this many people that it was worthwhile to develop the technology and use it. Well, now is the chance. When COVID came along, people said, bam, this technology is going to be great. It's also quite easy to manufacture, and it's actually pretty cheap when you think about it. A COVID-19 vaccine is only about 30 or 40 bucks for the mRNA vaccines. So that's pretty amazing. Pfizer and Moderna use mRNA, the messenger RNA, to deliver the instructions. And the J&J vaccine uses a harmless viral vector. People think, oh my gosh, I'm getting COVID. It is not COVID. It's a cold virus that grows in like apes or something. Doesn't even grow in humans. It's basically just a way to get the instructions into our cells to activate our immune system. None of them contain COVID-19. So vaccine development was global, okay? The biggest thing, if you remember nothing else from me talking today, is that absolutely no steps were skipped in the development of COVID-19 vaccines. Not a one, okay? That's a fear that a lot of people have, that folks cut corners, scientists cut corners. Did not happen. The way this happened so fast, and I'm going to say it really fast because I talk too much. Usually scientists are in their own little corners of the world, right? They have their own little group of guys. They got 10 women over here working on this, and they got 12 guys over here working on that. And they got a group working, they're all working on different stuff, right? All throughout the world. When COVID-19 hit, everybody knew this was serious. They knew we had to get a move on. So they all dropped what they were doing and everybody worked on COVID-19, right? So imagine if you're doing yard work and somebody's doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that, and then the campfire is out of control. Everybody drops what they're doing to take care of the campfire, right? You get it done a heck of a lot quicker than if one guy is doing it. That is how these vaccines were developed so quickly, okay? Usually it takes years. This was months. Clinical trials were very big, tens of thousands of people from all walks of life, people from many, many, many countries, many, many, many age groups. There were some exclusions because ethically speaking, we don't include pregnant women in a lot of studies. So pregnant women were not included, but we're going to talk about that in a second. And now the trials are going down in age. So Pfizer is now testing their vaccine in 12 to 16-year-olds, and it's looking pretty good. That's all I'm going to say. Looking good. So trials were big. Operation Warp Speed in this country, our government poured an enormous amount of money into developing COVID-19 vaccines. Regular vaccines, they usually get a little funding from here and a little funding from there. Imagine how long it takes to build your house, right? If you're only getting a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there, it's going to take you years and years and years. Somebody gives you a whole pot full of money, you're going to be able to build your house a lot faster. That's exactly what happened with COVID-19 vaccines. A lot of money, a lot of brains, a lot of technology, a lot of facilities, all at once, all doing the same thing. That's how it happened so fast. Absolutely no steps were skipped, as I said. Excuse me. The technology, again, has been around for a long, long time. It was nothing new. Nobody was really starting from scratch, except for not knowing about this virus. They had the DNA sequencing done within like 3 weeks, shared it with the entire world. Normally, a scientist discovers something, they don't share it with anybody, right? This was a global pandemic. Shared it with everybody. Everybody got to work right away. The first vaccine was actually in a vial, ready to be shipped about 3 weeks after the virus came to the United States, because the government, the regulators, didn't make manufacturers do everything one step at a time like we normally do in a drug or a vaccine process, right? So think about making your Sunday dinner. If you had to prepare the roast and then prepare the potatoes and then prepare the salad and then set the table and do everything separately, right? takes a heck of a lot longer than if you can do everything all at once. If the roast is cooking, while the potatoes are cooking, while the salad's cooking, everything is happening all at once, right? So because this was a global pandemic and extremely dangerous, the government regulator said, okay, you can start manufacturing even though we haven't approved it yet. And because the government funding was there, the manufacturers didn't mind making product that might go to waste, honestly, right? Because what if they didn't get approved? That would all go to waste. But because the government funded it, the government paid the bill, the manufacturers said, you know what, this looks really promising. We're just going to have it ready to go in case we get the stamp of approval. Okay. So that's what happened. All that stuff overlapped. You can see here, it wasn't just one step at a time. The steps were overlapping. Meetings were being held on the weekends. All of these meetings were public. Okay. The FDA meetings, the ACIP meetings, which is the immunization practices folks, all clinical folks that are completely unrelated to the government. All of those meetings were public. Yes, I'm a nerd. I was on a bunch of them. 8 hours a day on a Saturday and Sunday, they talked about these vaccines, and it was all open to the public and completely transparent. 3 vaccines we have. It's unbelievable. A year ago, we were talking about lockdown, right? And now a year later, we have 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 vaccines. And AstraZeneca is coming maybe in another month or 2 once they get their data together into the FDA. So you've heard of Pfizer, Moderna, and then we call it J&J, all authorized in a short period of time. All 3 are safe and effective. All 3 have FDA emergency use authorization. What the heck does that mean, right? Are they approved or are they not approved? FDA approval it's written in law that a product has to be studied for a certain amount of months before FDA approval can happen. Because we don't have that kind of time, we're in a public health emergency. There's a law that allows the FDA to grant emergency use authorization for drugs, vaccines, products. All of the COVID tests that we're using right now are all EUAs. None of them are FDA approved. They're all EUAs because they didn't have all those many months because we don't have that kind of time, like I said. So emergency use authorization doesn't make it any less effective, any less safe. It just means we have to get this done because we have a public health emergency.
Carole, a couple of questions that
Yes,
may
please.
be coming up, but
Thank you for helping me.
No problem, and they're associated. So one is, do we have to take the vaccine every year? And the other is, there seems to be uncertainty about the duration of immunity. What is the situation concerning duration of immunity and the vaccine? So they're,
okay, yeah, yep. As far as every year on the vaccine, I'm going to get into that in a little bit. We will cover that. As far as duration, we really don't know. This is new. I always say, when Consumer Reports tests house paint, Sherwin-Williams, and they paint the boards and they can simulate what 30 years of wear is going to look like, right? They can simulate 30 years of hurricanes and 30 years of snowfall. They can do that with, with machines and experimental things. We can't simulate what our body is going to do over the course of a year or 2 years or 3 years. There is absolutely no way to predict. We just have to wait and see how long immunity is going to last. It's very promising right now. There are people that were infected 8-9 months ago, and they're still showing immunity, and they're showing immunity to the variants. So because vaccination mimics as if you got infected, okay, our bodies are reacting actually stronger with vaccination than if you were infected. We can assume that the vaccine is going to last as long as that immunity is lasting from an infection, but there is absolutely no way to predict what your body is going to do. I mean, I never thought I'd look like this after 58 years on the planet, but here I am. I could not predict this. So, we just can't predict what's going to happen. We have to just keep studying. We have to keep monitoring, which I'm also going to talk about. And we just have to wait and see. And as far as another vaccine, I might as well touch on it now. There are some vaccines and some immunities that last forever, right? Once you get chickenpox, you can't get chickenpox again. There are some things that you get one shot and you're good to go forever and ever and ever, right? Some things we need a booster, right? Tetanus shot every 10 years. you need a booster. A flu shot, on the other hand, is because sometimes the virus will change. Flu shots we have to get every year because the virus, the enemy, that darn little guy, right, changes every year. So we have to get a new vaccine. That might happen with COVID. With these variants, we see that the virus is mutating, which is not unusual. Okay, this virus has mutated probably 2,000 times. Okay, scientists are watching that. Everybody's watching that, studying it. As you know, there's 3 or 4 that are a concern out of 1,000 or 2,000. Okay, viruses do this all the time. Whether it changes our immunity or not, only time is going to tell. So it could be that we have to get this every year. If we get it under control and it goes away, then we won't, right? But we'll have all this science backing us up if we do need more vaccines. So great questions. All 3 vaccines are equally beneficial to us. They all prevent death from COVID. They all prevent hospital stays from COVID. They all protect against the known variants, and every one of them will bring us to herd immunity. So the best vaccine is the one offered to you the soonest, okay? The best vaccine is the one going in your arm. There is no need to hold out for, I want this one, I want that one, right? 2 vaccines versus 1. The only reason that some vaccines are 2 and some are 1 is because that's what the manufacturer chose to study, right? There might be a manufacturer that says, I'm going to study 3 doses of the vaccine, and that one's going to come out, it's going to be 3 doses, because they have to pick something to focus on, right? So when they started out, they said, okay, let's see if we can do with 2 a little bit better. J&J said, look what I got with 1. I'm good with this. So it just depends on what they study. You can't compare these head to head. You can't compare efficacy numbers that you're hearing because they were all studied in different geographic regions with different variants floating around at different times in the pandemic, right? Moderna and Pfizer came out earlier than J&J, might have had higher viral numbers in the community than J&J did, or vice versa, right? It's actually the other way around. J&J had higher viral loads in the communities where it was being tested than Pfizer and Moderna had. So you can't say this one says 82.6 and this one says 91.2, and you cannot compare them at all. That's why I made this chart to show you that they are all going to do what we need them to do: prevent serious disease, prevent death, and get us to herd immunity, which is what we need. We don't need to prevent asymptomatic disease, right? These are the things we need right here, the important stuff to get us out of this emergency. 500 million doses have gone into arms. It's unbelievable. And as we talked about, they're showing that they prevent spread. None of the vaccines can give you COVID-19. They do not contain COVID-19. None of the vaccines cause a positive COVID-19 test. People are concerned about that. All the vaccines have similar side effects, which you've probably all heard about: soreness at the injection site, fever, fatigue, muscle aches, okay? This is your immune system responding. When you have a bug, when you have the flu, and you get a fever, the bug isn't giving you the fever. Your immune system is giving you the fever, okay, to try to fight off the bug. That's exactly what these vaccines are doing. It's your body, your immune system response is giving you the fever, is giving you the muscle aches, is giving you the fatigue, because all those armies, all those B cells, T cells, antibodies that I talked about, they're all going to work, right, to cut down the inflammation and to capture this enemy and get rid of it. So that's why you have the side effects. All the side effects are associated with your immune response. Allergic reactions, folks are extremely cautious about, I heard about, anaphylaxis, it's called, which is a severe, dangerous allergic reaction after a vaccine. They are extremely rare. What was my last slide? 500 million doses of vaccine, and there have been under 50 cases of anaphylaxis that require treatment. The other thing about anaphylaxis is we can treat anaphylaxis, right? If you have an EpiPen and you have somebody having a severe allergic reaction, you give them that shot of epinephrine, or sometimes 2, right? Sometimes they might have to go to the hospital to get checked out. Anaphylaxis is 100% treatable as long as you get help, which is why you stay in the vaccine area for 30 minutes if you have a risk of an allergic reaction, because most reactions happen within that time period. All, like I said, rare, very treatable, as opposed to COVID infection, right? Not always treatable, and a lot of folks die from it. Side effects versus adverse events. I want you to just understand that there's a difference. A side effect is something we expect. So that fever, that headache, that fatigue, we expect that stuff, okay? Just like when you eat beans for dinner, okay? We can have side effects from eating beans, right? Okay, we expect that, okay? But if I throw up and turn blue and fall on the floor from eating beans, that's going to be an adverse event. That's something that I don't expect. It's very rare, can be life-threatening, okay? So there's a big, big difference between those side effects from those beans that we expect and the adverse events that we don't expect, all right? So keep that in mind. Everything we do has side effects, okay? Vaccines, drugs, foods we eat, they all could have side effects, but we expect that stuff, okay? We know what happens when we eat beans. We know what happens when we eat a hot pepper, right? That's a side effect. Adverse event is something you don't expect, and they are extremely rare with these vaccines. Monitoring. The monitoring continues, which is awesome. So as I mentioned, the trials had 30 to 40,000 people in them. So we have all that data from those people, right? Now we can have data if folks would participate in monitoring, we could have data from every single person that gets vaccinated. There is an app for a smartphone called vSafe. Here is the website. You should be given this website information when you get vaccinated. If you are not given this information, I encourage you to ask, because these folks doing the vaccinating are working 12, 13, 14, 15 hours a day, getting shots in arms, and they might forget to give you this extra piece of paper because they've already given you all the fact sheet from the FDA that you have to read. They've done all of those important steps. And then the monitoring is that last person at the end. If they run out of those sheets, if somebody doesn't give it to you, please ask for the vSafe information or just go to this website and sign up. vSafe is very cool. I did it when I got my vaccine. It texts you every day. It takes literally 2 minutes to answer these questions. It will just ask you, how are you feeling? You know, like smiley faces, good, bad, not good. Asks you specific, are you having any of these symptoms? Did they prevent you from living your life? Did they prevent you from doing your daily activities, going to work, things like that? It'll text you every day for a week, and then weekly, it'll remind you to get your second shot if that's what you need, if you got Moderna or Pfizer. And then that cycle starts over again. Now I am 6 weeks out from vaccine 2, I think, and I still get a text every week just asking me how I'm doing. So the more people that participate in this, the more information we're going to have about vaccines after, right? What if we find out that only people who are in their 30s get a headache from the vaccine? We want to know that, right? So this is how we collect information from millions and millions of people. So please use vSafe. Can't say it enough. Here are the big questions that everybody's got, right? Only people who are allergic to vaccine ingredients cannot get this vaccine. I don't care what that cousin's dog's grandma's sister said, okay? The experts say, and the manufacturers, and everything that I have read, and believe me, I read COVID vaccine information every single day, only people allergic to vaccine ingredients cannot get them. There are a couple of ingredients to watch out for, PEG and polysorbate. If you are allergic to a flu shot, you can get the COVID-19 vaccine. If you're allergic to shellfish, you can get the COVID-19 vaccine, okay? Does not have any correlation with these vaccines whatsoever. These vaccines have no ingredients that are really in other vaccines. So there's no tide. They don't have any drugs in them. So if you're allergic to penicillin, you're still fine to get a COVID-19 vaccine, okay? Health conditions. I have a heart problem. I can't get vaccinated. Yes, you can, and you should, because if you have a heart problem, COVID's going to come and get you, right? Because those are the people that COVID kills, okay? Are the people with all those comorbid conditions, the obesity, the cardiovascular disease, the diabetes. It's all the more reason to get vaccinated, okay? There are no eggs, no preservatives, no latex in these vaccines, no COVID-19 virus in these vaccines. Immunocompromised folks. We know, okay, autoimmune disease folks, okay, I'm one. I know that I might not have as good a reaction as Marissa or Anitra to the vaccine, but you know what? I'm getting it anyway, okay? So autoimmune diseases, immunocompromised people can get the vaccine. You just may have a little bit different efficacy. Okay. But I'd rather have a little less efficacy than no efficacy and put myself out there, or not put myself out there and stay locked in my house for the rest of my life. Right. So if you have any concerns about your conditions, allergies, talk to your primary care provider, talk to the folks at the vaccine site. Okay. But there are no limitations on folks getting vaccinated except for age and allergies to the ingredients. Pregnant women are encouraged by OBGYNs to get vaccinated. Pregnant women have been hit hard with COVID-19, severe disease, death to the baby, right? They've been hit harder than the average person, and they are encouraged to get vaccinated, even though no tests were done in the clinical trials on pregnant people. We have a lot of people through VSafe that have found out they were pregnant after they were vaccinated, and we're following them. Okay. All this data is still being collected, and there have absolutely been no safety issues reported with pregnant women. So that's a conversation to have with your OBGYN. And I can almost guarantee that the doctor is going to say, please, please get vaccinated for your protection and your baby's protection. I think we are going to, let's hear from, I forgot to even call Sheila after the poll. So that's me rambling on. We're going to hear from a couple of caregivers who got their vaccine and why they got vaccinated, maybe. And I heard one of them has a funny story to tell me. Sheila, can you unmute yourself and tell all the participants about your vaccine experience?
Hi, everybody. I'm Sheila Harris. I believe I got vaccinated sometime in January. I guess I'm the one with the funny story. I, like everybody else, felt that I wasn't going to do it because it came out too fast. And I heard many stories on Facebook about, oh, well, they've been looking for diabetes cure, and all of a sudden in 6 months they come out with this, and I wasn't going to do it. I have a friend who's a severe germaphobe. If you're coughing, you can't even go in her house. So I thought if I called her, she would say she wouldn't take it. So then I would say I wouldn't take it. So I think 3 days before I was supposed to take it, I called her on the phone and I said, you know what? They came out with this vaccine. Do you think you're going to take it? She said, are you crazy? I've already taken it. I was like, oh my God, now I have no excuse not to take it. My excuse is gone. So I ended up taking it. The first shot made my arm sore for 3 days. That was about the worst of it. The second shot, I had my friend, the germaphobe, who's also an EMT.
Quite the combo.
Of all things for her to be as an EMT, said that after you take the second shot, if you wait 6 hours, you could take 2 Tylenol because it would help with the side effects. So I waited the 6 hours. I took the 2 Tylenol. When I woke up the next morning, all I felt was nauseous all day and very tired. I've heard a lot of people say they felt like they had the flu, so I was preparing for feeling like I had the flu. But I guess I got off lucky because all I felt was nauseous all day.
Yeah, that's actually a point I like. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's not, to me, I think it was the fear of the first shot that I got all worked up over. because after the shot, they tell you to wait outside for 15 minutes. And I got up and I got dizzy, but I think that was all the anxiety and everything I had for getting the shot. But other than that, all I felt was nauseous all day the next day.
Yeah, that's actually one point I want to make, that, you know, you heard about folks that felt this way or that way. Bad news travels 10 times faster than good news. So you're going to hear 10 people's bad stories, and the people who felt great are not going to say a word. So you hear all the bad stuff and you don't get to hear all the good stuff, right? There are a lot more people that had a good experience like you and like I did. I had, after shot 2, I had a really crappy taste in my mouth for about 3 days. And that was it. So I don't advise people to take Tylenol unless they need it because they're uncomfortable. As a pharmacist, I wouldn't advise taking it as a preventative because you never want to take medicine unless you need it. But certainly you can take it if you have a headache or aches or fever. It'll certainly help, but I don't advise that. But I'm glad it worked out for you, and I'm glad you're vaccinated, Sheila.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. You know, the only thing I worry about is I'm not so sure about my son just yet. He's only 5.
He's only how old?
He's 5. You know, I'm not so, you know.
Yeah, I understand.
And that just yet, because like you said, we don't know. And I think a 5-year-old is still growing. So I'm not so sure about him yet. Yeah. You know, give me a couple years and then we can talk about it.
Yeah. And I understand. I'm going to answer a few of these questions before we get to Mercedes. Do we have Mercedes on audio, Anitra?
Yeah, yes, we have Mercedes, but we had experienced some technical difficulties. So Mercedes is in the Zoom. You can see her video, but you're hearing her through my phone.
Okay, I'm going to just answer a couple of these questions and then I want to hear from her, okay? Because I pretty much talked myself out. We just have just facts on these last few slides about how many people have been vaccinated. And I think I want to leave that one up there because in New York State, you can go to all of these different places now to get vaccinated. And the only ones with restrictions are pharmacies. Pharmacies can do ages 30 and up and people with comorbid conditions. So if you're, well, actually, that's just about everybody now, right? But if you're a 25-year-old nurse, you can't go to a pharmacy until next week. Crazy, right? Crazy. Okay, does it lower transmission? We answered that one, and I even made sense. That's always helpful when I make sense. Vaccine every year. Duration of immunity, we talked about that. We're not sure and can't possibly know, unfortunately. If somebody's on prednisone, can that person get vaccinated or should they wait? A lot's going to depend on what the prednisone is for and if it's short-term or long-term. If it's a short-term prednisone, the doc would probably want the person just to wait until the prednisone is over, you know, if it's a 10-day course. But if somebody's on prednisone every day, say for rheumatoid arthritis or something, those people are likely to be vaccinated. That is a question for the doctor that prescribed the prednisone. So just go right to the person who prescribed the prednisone and ask that question, because prednisone, as I said, it makes you immunocompromised, which means you can't fight off infection, which means you're more prone to get COVID. So we do want you vaccinated. You just may not have as robust or as an active and immune response, but you would still benefit from the vaccine. I love this question. Can I be with other people that had the vaccine like me in an indoor space without a mask? Yes, and you can even hug them. Per the CDC, vaccinated people can mix and mingle and smooch it up with other vaccinated people with no mask because the risk of transmission is extremely, extremely low. Okay, nothing is ever non-existent, but the risk is extremely low. First thing I did was hug my fellow pharmacist after I got vaccinated. Somebody I hadn't seen or gotten within 6 feet of in a year. So yes, you can. And if you've been vaccinated, according to the CDC, you can even unmask and visit with an unvaccinated family. So if I want to go to Marissa's house where none of her folks have been vaccinated, but I have been, I can go to Marissa's house where nobody's been vaccinated. If I want to go to a party where there's 15 different families that are unvaccinated, that's not recommended. But one family, I can go visit with, even whether they've been vaccinated or not. So great question. And that's what we're all shooting for, right? Is getting back to normal. So that's kind of the point that, this is going to happen bit by bit. We're eventually going to be able to peel those layers off and get a little bit closer and closer. But look how far we've come already with just, I think we're in week 16 of vaccinating, and we can already, take off our masks and mingle with our loved ones in certain situations. So we will get there, and we'll get there soon. We just have to hold on a little bit longer. So great questions. Thank you. Do we have Mercedes? Tell us your story, Mercedes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you? Okay. Can you guys hear Mercedes? Carole, can you hear her?
I can hear her.
Okay, very good. Go ahead, Mercedes.
I'll tell you my story. February 22nd, I got vaccinated. After my doctor told me it was okay to be vaccinated. Everybody else said not to do it, especially my daughter. She says that I was going to be a guinea pig. At the beginning, I listened to her a little bit, but then I went to talk to my doctor, and he says, no, go ahead and do it. I am diabetic, and I also have asthma. I am a 17-year-old person. So I said to myself, it is okay. You should do it. So after thinking about it very, very, very hard, I did it. And I didn't have a pain of any kind in the first shot or the second shot. I was fine. I was walking around with Tylenol, but I didn't need it. So I feel safe. I am from Peru, and a lot of people over there, they wish they were here so they can be vaccinated. So I don't understand how people fight it so much. They have to have an educated decision. You talk to your doctor, you talk to people who really know what they're talking about, and you listen to them. You don't listen to the neighbor or to people on Facebook or anything like that. So I feel great about it. And I will say people to do it. It's a good thing to have something in your body to fight this virus.
That's great, Mercedes. Thank you. And you make that point that I make all the time, is reliable sources, right? The neighbors and the daughters and everybody doesn't want you to do stuff, but you went to the source, you went to the doctor who knows, and he knows what he's talking about, he or she, and gave you good advice. That's the thing to do, is to just go to those reliable sources. Suddenly your neighbor on his lawnmower is not smarter than the guys with the PhDs. Sorry, just not. So, we all have our areas of expertise, and most people don't have expertise on vaccines. So you got to talk to the folks that do. So that's a really great point, Mercedes. Thank you for sharing. Marissa, I don't see any other chat questions. Can you launch our other poll question? Because I just want to see if you guys learned anything. Tonight, I have increased my understanding about COVID-19 vaccine regarding safety, development, technology, effectiveness, side effects, or its value in getting us back to normal. Just pick however many you want. If you didn't learn anything, don't pick anything.
Also want to make a comment after, if there's a minute.
You can go in the chat.
Okay.
And if you want it to be private, you just click where it says everyone, and then you pick my name.
Okay.
I'm Carole. I'm there somewhere. Although I don't know if it's a bad comment, I shouldn't have given you instructions on how to leave it. I should have asked that question first. Good stuff goes in the chat. The bad comments can come in the mail. Good. It looks like everybody learned stuff. See, the development and the technology. That's important for us to understand. 86% of the people learn stuff about that. And that's where a lot of people are lacking in their education about COVID vaccines. And like I said at the very beginning, the lack of knowledge is what gives us the fear, right? When you don't know what's behind the door, you're afraid. If you know what's behind the door, then you're less afraid. Unless it's my ex-husband, then you might be more afraid. Do the variants still pose a transmission risk? Well, all of the variants, including the original ones, still pose a small risk. The vaccines are active against these variants and are reducing the risk of transmission of the variants. The best way to put a stop to all these variants is to stop transmission by getting vaccinated. So a virus that isn't moving around and isn't replicating can't turn into a variant or a mutant or something that makes us sicker. So there's still a risk from every strain of COVID that we have, every mutant, every variant. There's still a risk of transmission, but vaccination greatly, greatly reduces that risk.
I have a question for you.
Yes, please, Sheila, go.
Because my sister just got a phone call. She has somebody that works in her building whose husband has been sick for a few days. And today he just tested positive. Now she works with the wife. Now the wife said that she went and got tested today. Isn't she supposed to wait 6 days?
Well, no, if he had symptoms 3 days ago and she's been with him every day, you said he's been sick for a few days?
Yeah.
Yeah. If she tested negative today, then if I were her, I would wait 2 more days and go get tested again. And I would stay the heck away from him. I'm talking separate room. Because a lot of
should she
transmissions
still
happen in living rooms.
quarantine?
I'm sorry?
Should she still quarantine from the job and stuff?
She should ask her physician that question or her public health. Some depends on what your job is, because there are some essential healthcare workers that are permitted to go to work. And I honestly don't know what the exact guidance is today on testing and quarantining. If she hasn't been vaccinated, I take it.
She's a secretary.
Yeah, she should call her public health department and ask them if she doesn't have a physician. Her primary care provider would be the #1 person to go to, or the local health department.
Okay, so she should wait 2 days to get tested.
Different counties have different transmission rates and may have different rules. So, and she should get vaccinated as soon as she can, because then she wouldn't be asking this question. Because vaccinated people that are exposed to the virus do not have to quarantine per the CDC.
Claudia's question is a good one. It's not vaccine per se specific, but it's a very good question. Like
in the box?
About our vaccination cards. Like should we laminate them? I mean, it's almost, I feel like it's going to be like at the level of like a social security card essentially, because it's going to be your pass. So is that really how we should look at it? How should we, view a vaccination card once we have?
I would make several copies of it so that God forbid you lose it. Heaven forbid. Make several copies of it. Keep it in a safe place. Don't be dragging it around with you if you don't think you're going to need it. There is an app that they're launching in New York that is going to be on a smartphone that you will be able to download that, so that, because a lot of these venues are only going to be open to vaccinated people. I have friends of mine, up in the woods that say, I'm not getting vaccinated. I'm not having people tell me what to do. I do what I want. I said, well, you're not going to go to concert, maybe. You're not going to go to football game. It's going to be public health law. So, they can't mandate it, but a venue can say, that's their property. If they don't want to let you in, they don't have to let you in. So yeah, I would treat it like gold. Everybody should know that there is a record of your vaccination in the New York State immunization system. That is a requirement. Every vaccinator has to enter that. No matter what your age, they don't have to ask you if it's okay. So every vaccination is entered into the New York State immunization information system. So there is a record of it. So if you lose that card, it's not that, you know, it's not the end of the world. You can still ask your doctor to give you a record of what you had. So that record is safe and secure somewhere. But yeah, that card,
What about taking a picture on your phone?
yeah, you could do that. Yep. Yep, I'm old school. I'm going to make 3 copies and put them in my firebox and keep one with my passport. And
Thank you for answering me the question. I asked you because my son is going to go to the baseball season that I just opened to the stadium tomorrow.
yeah,
And he already was asked to show his Vaccinate card.
yep, yep.
So,
Okay, we're over time here. I don't want to keep Marissa so late. If there are any last minute questions, I'll leave that open for 1 minute. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed chatting with you. That's for sure. Don't give up if you can't get an appointment. United States received 33 million doses just this week, okay? Folks, please take care of yourselves. Don't forget about all our other diseases, right? Just because we have COVID doesn't mean cancer goes away or diabetes goes away or COPD goes away. None of that stuff that we have to look out for every day. It's all still around, so don't put that stuff off. Eat right, get some sleep, and be good to yourselves. Wash, wear, and watch. Okay, a little while longer, we're getting there. Thank you all for your attention, and thank you, Marissa, for giving up your Wednesday night for our little project here.
No, this was an absolute joy. It was so nice to be with everyone. Thank you for submitting your questions and for taking the time to be with us tonight. It was so nice to meet all of you.
Thanks so much. Take care. Good night. Be
Thank
safe.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Very informative.